everybody. We are back in the Parrot Chair here. Michael Cohen here on the Sports Talk Nation, and we got a lot to discuss. The Mets trying to withstand some injuries, and are the Yankees ever going to lose again? All right, everybody. Michael Cohen here on the Sports Talk Nation, and welcome aboard. Before we begin talking about the Mets and their recent struggles over this past week against the Houston Astros, and of course all the injuries that came with it, as they get ready to take on the Miami Marlins this weekend, hit the like and subscribe button right here on the Sports Talk Nation. We got a lot of big content coming your way, and I'm going to talk more about that, as well as not just baseball, but football, of course, coming up, getting ready to warm up as well. So hit the like and subscribe button here on the Sports Talk Nation. Now, let's get right into it here. And I think the question a lot of Met fans, I'm starting to see it now more and more on social media more so over the last couple of days, after the Mets got swept by the Houston Astros. And it was a tough series. I mean, I know it was only a two-game series. It was going to be, if you want to sit there and say it was a litmus test in some ways, going up against the second-best team in the American League, I guess you could say that. Keep in mind, Mets weren't exactly at full strength there going into that series against Houston. And I don't want to use that as an excuse because the Mets have had injuries all year, but when you're going up against a great team like that, against the Houston Astros, you really want to be at full strength. The Mets weren't exactly at full strength. Now, I give them a lot of credit because they hung tough in that second game. And I thought they had a couple of chances to come back, take the lead. I thought they had a chance to win that game on Wednesday afternoon, the one they lost 5-3. The bullpen was fantastic. 5 1/3 innings of shutout baseball by the entire bullpen of Tommy Hunter and Juan Lopez. Edwin Diaz, Julio Rodriguez did a great job holding the Astros to just 3 hits. Because before that, it was the Yordan Alvarez show as he went off with 3 home runs in that series. And he certainly is in contention for an AL MVP right up there with Aaron Judge. So it was a tough series. We knew it was going to be a tough series. But you take a look over the last several weeks, since that great series against the Los Angeles Dodgers where the Mets came back and ended up splitting that 4-game series. They went 5-5 on that road trip. Had a tough series against Milwaukee. They found a way to take 2 out of 3 in that series. If you really want to take a look against how the Mets have done against the teams that they could end up seeing in the playoffs, whether it be the Dodgers, the Padres, the Brewers, obviously the Astros would have to be a World Series for that matter, but against those type of teams, against playoff teams that are likely going to be there in 2022, Mets went a combined 5-7. There are some great moments, there are some good moments, and of course a lot of poor moments. Now, I'm not going to panic, for that matter, just based on that record. I will say this, that there are some things that do alarm you. I think the injuries are the thing that have to alarm Met fans the most. Obviously, losing guys like McNeil to a hamstring injury, to a hamstring injury, losing Carlos Carrasco, as the Mets did the other day, to back tightness, losing Tyler McGill, the way they did last week against Milwaukee, to a right shoulder strain. Those are kind of things that have to bother you if you are the New York Mets and if you are a New York Mets fan, because you want to try to get healthy right now. You have had a season where you haven't exactly been at 100% health all year, and you're trying to find a way to get to that plateau of being fully healthy moving forward as you move towards the second half of the season. While there is hope, while there is some glimmer of hope coming down the road here, you have Max Scherzer likely coming off the injury list this weekend against the Miami Marlins on Sunday, which is going to be a huge plus for this team. You have McNeil coming off the injury list as well. He wasn't actually on the injury list. He, of course, was out for the last couple of days with the hamstring injury. He should be ready to go this weekend. You have James McCann also coming off of the injury list from the hamate bone injury. The Mets would like to have his defense behind there at catcher, so you have that good news. And then there's the hopeful news that you're going to get Jacob deGrom back very soon. Maybe as soon as a couple of weeks before the August 2nd trade deadline, which is going to be a very big moment, because that is going to help determine what the Mets decide to do moving forward. As far as the trade deadline is concerned, this is a team that could use some help as far as DH is concerned. Third base, we'll get into more of that in a second. Relief pitching, and then if these injuries keep propping up, and that's the thing that concerns me most as far as the starting rotation is concerned. If these injuries keep propping up on guys like Carrasco and McGill, and of course, we don't know, we don't know what we're going to see from deGrom or Scherzer, for that matter, when they get back. We hope and we expect them to be great. But should the Mets consider at some point maybe adding another starting pitcher here before the trade deadline comes? So these are questions the Mets are going to look at, and they certainly are looking at and trying to answer, whether it be Billy Epler, Buck Showalter, Sandy Alderson, that entire group of people and the scouting staff trying to figure out here over the next couple of weeks. That's going to be the big determining factor for the Mets as they get ready for the second half of the season and trying to make that push towards the playoffs, because let's take a look at the standings. On Memorial Day, the Mets had an 8.5 game lead on Atlanta. Atlanta looked like a team that wasn't going to go anywhere. You want to say it was a World Series hangover, call whatever you want, but they have figured things out, and they have trimmed that lead in the NL East to just 4 games. Even Philadelphia, since the firing of Joe Girardi, has played better baseball, and they're still somewhat in this race as well in the NL East. You're never really out of it. I thought it was interesting that Eduardo Escobar came out and apologized to Met fans for his struggles. And let's just take a look at the stats here again. He has had a tough time of it all year, hitting at .231 in the year, .291 on-base percentage, only 6 home runs, 29 RBIs. Out of a lineup where you've seen a lot of guys produce, we've seen Starling Marte produce big hits. We've seen Mark Canha produce big hits. We have seen, of course, Pete Alonso, Francisco Lindor produce the majority of the big hits for this team. Even Thomas Nido, in the stead of James McCann, producing big hits. Jeff McNeil producing big hits. The one guy who hasn't consistently produced big hits has been Escobar, who's had moments, just not a lot of them, coming out and saying, I understand the frustrations of the fans. One day I'm going to give them a reason to cheer me on. And let's hope that does happen, because he is a good veteran player. He's a good player in the clubhouse. The players like playing with him on this team. This isn't a situation, this is a very sticky situation in a lot of ways, because if he continues to struggle, what do the Mets do there? And J.D. Davis, who has been running on the bench a lot, do you give him more time at third? However you do that, you're losing some defense by putting Davis at third and sending Escobar. Escobar is a better defensive third baseman. So you have that as well. The trade market, I can't sit here and tell you that there's a lot of, third basemen out there on the trade market that are, doing great on bad teams. I just don't. I looked around yesterday. I don't see that kind of player out there. To me, you have a guy who's a good player in a clubhouse like Escobar and a veteran guy. Do you really want to supplant him, or do you want to try to ride it out if you are the Mets? And I think that's what they're going to try to do. Ride it out with him and hope that he can figure it out as we move towards the second half of the season and move through July and August. And hopefully he really starts to catch fire towards the end of the season. But it's been a frustrating first half for him, because he has been the one guy that you would like to see contribute. We've seen a few flashes here and there, but in a lot of big spots, like yesterday, in a situation we had runners on base, bases loaded, couldn't do it. Popped up in that situation. So he's starting to feel the frustration as well. So it's frustrating right now. I mean, look, it's a long season. I say this all the time. It's a long season for a reason. 162 games. And you knew that at some point the Mets were going to have some adversity. They're starting to have a little bit of adversity now here towards through the month of June, towards the end of June, and now going into July, as we sit here and wait for a lot of guys to come back off the injury list, and even we wait for guys to stop getting injured, so we can see what this team can really truly look like when it's fully together and healthy, for that matter, moving forward. So I think that's where really the frustration is. It's not panic time, but it's kind of like, let's get this thing going here a little bit. Let's see this thing. We know how good this team can be. Let's see it get going. As far as the Yankees are concerned, my goodness, this team is incredible. I mean, there's no other words to put it. They're 51-18. They almost never lose. I know they lost. They lost the other day to Tampa Bay, and they were losing yesterday to Tampa Bay before Jose Trevino hit a 2-run bomb in the 8th inning to win that game 5-4. But they just find ways to come back and win games, much like the Mets did, early in the year. The Yankees consistently find ways to win games. First, it was their starting pitching, which has been still, to this day, fantastic. They've had 4 attempted no-hit bids. Whether it be Garrett Cole, whether it be Jameson Talia, Nestor Cortez, they have been fantastic. Jordan Montgomery has been very good. Now, Of course, Cortez, Montgomery, they've gotten hit hard a little bit to the last couple of games, but what? Only give, 4 runs? 3, 4 runs? Their team is still in the game when they're leaving the game. So the bullpen, again, also fantastic. You have Clay Holmes, who has been amazing as the ninth inning guy, as the closer for this team, and I think in a lot of ways has supplanted Aroldis Chapman, who, by the way, will be training in Somerset with the Somerset Patriots this weekend to get himself back ready to go after coming off of an Achilles injury. Clay Holmes, however, has been tremendous. He has a microscopic ERA of 0.55. They have been phenomenal. Now, they're going to have a big test this weekend, of course, when they go up against the Astros for 4 games. And we saw a lot of the Astros against the Mets the last couple of days. That's a good baseball team. I mean, we all know how good the Astros are. We all know the players they have in that team, whether it's, Bregman and Altuve, Jordan Alvarez, who I mentioned earlier, right now is right up there with Aaron Judge as far as a AL MVP consideration. That's going to be a tremendous series. Do I want to, go out here and tell you right away that that's going to determine home field advantage here in the month of June? I'm not going to say that, but let's just be honest. If most likely they're both going to split that 4-game series. But it would be very fascinating to see if somebody could win 3 out of 4. I'll say that. If someone wins 3 out of 4, that would be a statement this weekend between those two teams. And what's impressive about the Yankees is you look at their lineup, their batting averages are not very impressive. I mean, Anthony Rizzo hitting at 231, LeMahieu struggling at 260, Gleyber Torres hitting around 260, Giancarlo Stanton hitting at 245, but what happens for the Yankees is they get the big hits when they need them, and they get the big home runs when they need them, and of course, Aaron Judge has been on another planet. I mean, the guy's an MVP candidate, 27 home runs, 52 RBIs. I think he's going to run away with it. He's going to make huge amounts of money in this offseason. I mean, you're talking about someone who may, push for $380 to $400 million. I mean, if Francisco Lindor can get $360 million, $340 million from Mets, you're telling me that Aaron Judge is not going to ask for $380 to $400 million? He's going to. So he's going to make a big contract. They're fantastic. I'm really curious about that. It's really fascinating about that series the Yankees are going to have this weekend against Houston. And, of course, the Mets and Yankees don't see each other until the end of July anyway. That's going to be a fascinating series as well. So that's where we are right now in state of baseball. The Yankees just keep rolling. The Mets have had a little bit of starts and stops here over the last couple of weeks since that tremendous Dodgers series, and we just keep moving. We keep pressing forward here as we move towards the end of June, believe it or not, and going into July. One note here before we go. Now, on Fox Sports Radio New Jersey, which is the station I work for, I will have a special interview with the new head coach of Rutgers women's basketball, Coquise Washington. That is going to play on our station, 93.5 FM, as well as our streamer, and I'm going to put the link down below, around 6:15 on Friday night, and again at 8:30 in the morning on Saturday. Of course, you can always have the link there as well. You can go listen to the podcast once it's up tomorrow night, but that's where it's going to be. It's good. It's a very good interview, and I think you guys will enjoy listening to that as well. So take a listen to that. Also, kill the like and subscribe button, and we'll talk to you next time right here on the Sports Talk Nation.